just IN. After their dominant win in Super Bowl 60, the Seattle Seahawks are already being linked to defensive reinforcements, with reports suggesting they could target a monster defender to boost their front and maintain pressure next season. Seattle's defense was the driving force behind their 29-13 championship victory, suffocating the Patriots and forcing turnovers all night long. The buzz in NFL circles is that the Seahawks could add a big-time edge rusher or interior disruptor in free agency or the 2026 draft to ensure opponents can't handle their dark side defensive identity. With Devin Witherspoon, Derek Hall, and Byron Murphy leading a ferocious unit, Seattle wants to ensure its defense stays elite, and fans are hyped for potential additions that could make the 12s even louder next season. What's up, 12s? We've got breaking news shaking up the Pacific Northwest. And trust me, this one is going to have the entire NFL world talking. The Seattle Seahawks are reportedly targeting a monster defender in the aftermath of the Super Bowl. And if this move actually goes down, the rest of the league better be on notice. But here's the crazy part. Some fans aren't sure they're ready for what this means. Buckle up, because we're diving deep into what's happening behind the scenes, why this move makes sense, and why some 12s might not be able to handle it. So here's the situation. After watching the Super Bowl and seeing firsthand what elite defensive dominance looks like on the biggest stage, the Seahawks' front office reportedly decided one thing. They need more violence, more disruption, and more fear on defense. Not just solid players, not just depth pieces. A true game-wrecking, tone-setting monster who changes everything the moment he steps on the field. And if you've been watching this team closely, you know why. Last season showed flashes of potential. The defense improved in spurts. There were moments where the pass rush looked alive, where the secondary flashed that old Legion-style swagger. But when it mattered most, in key matchups against elite quarterbacks, there were breakdowns. There were missed tackles. There were third and long conversions that had Lumen Field holding its breath. That can't happen if you want to compete for championships. Word around league circles is that the Seahawks' front office, led by General Manager John Schneider, has been aggressively exploring options for a high-impact defensive addition, the kind of player offensive coordinators lose sleep over. We're talking about a defender with size, speed, and that nasty streak. The type who doesn't just make tackles, he ends drives. Now let's think about what that means schematically. Under head coach Mike Macdonald, the defensive identity is built around disguise, aggression, and confusion. Macdonald's system thrives when he has versatile chess pieces, players who can rush from multiple angles, linebackers who can blitz or drop, defensive linemen who can collapse the pocket without needing constant help. But to truly unlock that scheme, you need a monster up front, someone who commands double teams, someone who forces quarterbacks off their spot, someone who makes opposing offenses abandon their game plan by halftime. And that's exactly what Seattle appears to be targeting. Sources close to the situation suggest the team has been making calls about a physically dominant defender, a player coming off a strong season, possibly on a team entering cap trouble or a rebuild. This isn't a fringe signing. This isn't a rotational piece. This is the kind of move that would dominate headlines. Now here's where things get interesting. Not every 12 is convinced this is the right move. Why? Because acquiring a monster defender often comes at a cost. Draft capital, cap flexibility, maybe even a fan-favorite player included in a trade package. And Seahawks fans know the value of patience. They've seen rebuilds before. They understand roster construction. But at the same time, there's a hunger in Seattle right now, a feeling that this team is closer than people think. The offense has weapons. The quarterback situation is stabilizing. The young talent is developing. What's missing is that alpha presence on defense. The guy who sets the tone in week one and carries it through January. Think about the psychological impact alone. Imagine opposing quarterbacks preparing all week knowing they're going to be under siege. Imagine offensive lines shifting protection constantly because they don't know where the pressure is coming from. Imagine 3rd and 7 feeling like 3rd and 20 because the pocket collapses in 2 seconds. That's what a monster defender does. And let's not ignore what we just saw in the Super Bowl. Championship teams win at the line of scrimmage. They pressure without always blitzing. They make life uncomfortable for even the most elite quarterbacks. If Seattle wants to get back to that stage, they can't rely on almost. They need dominance. But here's the emotional twist in all of this. Some fans are worried this signals an all-in mentality too soon. They wonder if the team should continue building organically through the draft. They question whether sacrificing future assets for one star defender is worth it. And those concerns are valid. Championship windows are delicate. One wrong contract can set you back years. However, there's another way to look at it. What if this isn't desperation? What if this is confidence? What if the Seahawks believe they're one major defensive piece away from being legitimate contenders? Because let's be honest, the NFC is competitive, but it's not invincible. There are powerhouses, yes, but there's room at the top. A disruptive, elite defender could be the difference between a wild card exit and a deep playoff run. And here's something else people aren't talking about enough. Culture. Seattle's identity has always been tied to defense, physicality, swagger, intensity. When the defense is feared, the entire team feeds off it. The crowd gets louder. The sideline gets energized. Momentum shifts feel bigger. Adding a monster defender isn't just about sacks and tackles for loss. It's about restoring that identity. Picture opening day. The crowd roaring. The defense takes the field. First 3rd down. The new acquisition explodes off the line, bulldozes through a blocker, and plants the quarterback into the turf. The stadium erupts. That energy, it spreads. Now imagine that happening consistently. That's the kind of spark that transforms seasons. But let's address the elephant in the room. Can the Seahawks actually pull this off financially? The cap situation is always tricky. Big defensive stars command serious money, guarantees, long-term commitments. And Seattle has young players they'll need to pay soon. Balancing present ambition with future stability is a high-wire act. Yet Schneider has never been afraid to make bold moves when he believes the value is right. Remember, great front offices don't just react, they anticipate. If Seattle is aggressively targeting this defender, it likely means they've run the numbers. They've evaluated the locker room. They've considered the long-term impact. And here's the kicker. Players around the league notice moves like this. When a franchise goes after a dominant defender, it sends a message. We're serious. Veterans pay attention. Free agents pay attention. It can create a ripple effect, making Seattle a more attractive destination. But what about the 12s who can't handle it? That phrase isn't about weakness. It's about emotion. Seahawks fans are passionate. They invest deeply. They analyze every trade rumor. They debate every draft pick. The idea of giving up future assets for one player can be stressful. It feels risky. It feels uncertain. Yet championships require risk. Safe teams rarely hoist trophies, and sometimes the move that scares you the most is the one that changes everything. If this monster defender arrives and delivers, the narrative flips instantly. Doubters become believers. The anxiety turns into adrenaline. And imagine the storyline. Seattle, overlooked by some analysts, quietly building. Then boom, they unleash a defensive force that alters the NFC hierarchy. Suddenly, prime-time games return. National respect follows. The Seahawks are no longer rebuilding. They're hunting. Of course, nothing is official yet. Negotiations are fluid. Rumors can fade. But the fact that the Seahawks are even in these conversations tells you something about their mindset. They're not content with mediocrity. They're not satisfied with incremental improvement. They want impact. And as fans, that's something to get excited about. Because at the end of the day, football is about moments, game-changing plays, defensive stands that define seasons, the roar after a strip sack, the silence from an opposing crowd when your defense takes over. If Seattle lands this monster defender, those moments could be coming back in a big way. So 12s, here's the real question. Are you ready? Ready for the risk? Ready for the pressure? Ready for expectations to rise? Because if this move happens, there will be no more hiding behind. We're still developing. The bar will move. The spotlight will brighten. And honestly, that's where Seattle belongs. Keep your notifications on. Watch the trade wires. Stay locked in. Because if this front office pulls the trigger, the entire NFC is going to feel it. And when that first sack hits, when that first quarterback gets driven into the turf, when the crowd shakes the stadium again, don't say we didn't warn you. The Seahawks might be about to unleash a monster.